Sure enough, 50 years later, in 1947, UN Resolution 181, the resolution that would decide whether to allow the formation of a Jewish state, was up for a vote. Passing the resolution was at best no guarantee. It may be difficult for us to picture the uncertainty of this historic moment today. So let me take you back. It was November 29th, 1947. The diplomats sitting in these same chairs had their doubts. Leaders in state capitals across the world were not convinced. The Zionist delegates themselves and believers around the world relied on prayers, hopes, and dreams for this great miracle to happen. Many people were skeptical about the adoption of the resolution. Even amongst our greatest allies, voices of doubt could be heard. Just 2 months before the vote, a senior State Department official warned Secretary of State George Marshall that the national interests of the United States would not be served by the setting up of a Jewish state. The odds were against us. Inside the General Assembly, Zionist representatives rushed from diplomat to make their case. We needed a 2/3 majority. Every vote counted. As my dear colleagues from the UN know very well, both now and then, we Israelis never take no for an answer. When one diplomat was missing, when the voting started, a Zionist delegate ran around the entire building to find him. He dragged him back to his seat just in time. Around the world, Jewish emissaries traveled to capitals far and wide to argue the case for a Jewish state. They truly were our first ambassadors. They promoted the Zionist cause with pride. They proved that once again, the Jewish people are Am Echad Belev Echad, one nation with one heart. Jews across the world held their breath. Families crowded around radios. People tallied every vote with shaking hands and trembling hearts. According to one eyewitness, the vote, lasting just a few minutes, felt like the length of the Jewish exile. Soon enough, the longest few minutes in history were over. With 33 votes, Resolution 181 was adopted. The Jewish people made history. After 2,000 years, despite great challenges, we came home. We fulfilled the age-old predictions of our prophets that one day the Jews would return to the Jewish land. Ladies and gentlemen, a miracle of miracles came true, and we pay tribute to you who stood with us at this turning point in history. Toda. Thank you. Gracias. Merci. Spasiba. Whether it was Doc Evett, the Australian diplomat who saw the vote as a great victory of the United Nations, or the 13 Latin American countries who made up 40% of the votes in favor, you made something remarkable happen. Israel will never forget the decisive diplomatic role of President Truman. He was the first to support Israel in this moment. That support has lasted all the way until today. If there is one friend I know I can always count on, one partner who always has our back and always stands by our side, it is the United States of America. In 1897, Theodor Herzl dreamt of the impossible. In 1947, the Jewish people realized the impossible, and today, in 2017, 70 years later, the modern state of Israel has made the impossible possible. Even in their wildest dreams, no one could have imagined the Israel of today. an Israel that helps so many around the world, an Israel that is a respected global partner, an Israel that dreams for peace. As David Ben-Gurion, Israel's first prime minister, said, "The difficult we do immediately. The impossible takes a little longer." Ladies and gentlemen, the biblical prophet Ezekiel said, and I quote, "ואתם ערי ישראל, ענפיכם תיתנו ופריכם תישאו לעמי ישראל, כי קרבו לבוא." You mountains of Israel will produce branches and fruit for my people Israel, for they will soon come home. Our prophet was right. We came home. It was a miracle of its time, and it was only the beginning. From this day onward, for the next 70 years and beyond, Israel will continue to be a beacon of democracy, a powerhouse of innovation, and a light among the nation. I am here today to proudly proclaim that the nation of Israel lives, the beauty of Israel lives, and the miracle of Israel will prevail forever. Am Israel Chai.
It is now my honor and pleasure to introduce a man who has spent his life fighting for the Jewish people and for the state of the career, Ambassador Ronald S. Lauder.
Thank you. Vice President Pence, Secretary Mnuchin, Minister Katz, Ambassador Dayan, and ambassadors from over 60 countries around the world, distinguished guests. I want to begin today with a correction. The Jewish state did not really begin here. In 1947, Jews everywhere rejoiced when the United Nations voted in this building for the creation of the Jewish state of Israel. But the truth is, there was a kingdom called Judea for 8 centuries in that land. That's why we're called Jews today. We just didn't materialize in New York or London or Paris. Jews lived in this land long before it was conquered by the Romans. It was in this land that they created many of the foundations of civilization that we live by today. And when Jews were forced into exile 2,000 years ago, they mourned their loss every single day in their prayers, on every Passover for those 2,000 years. And still today, we end with a phrase that is more of an oath than a prayer. We say, "Next year in Jerusalem," because we never forgot who we are, and we never forgot where we came from. It was certainly a miracle, nonetheless, that in one divine moment, the world gave its blessing for the Jewish people to return to their ancestral homeland. But what happened here 70 years ago raised an important question about the very foundations of the UN. Once the State of Israel was declared with the UN's blessing, 5 Arab armies massed onto its borders and attacked it, and the UN turned its back on the new Jewish state. What does that say? You create a state, and then you say nothing when it's about to be destroyed. Knowing this, it's all the more upsetting to see some of the things going on in the UN today. Organizations like UNESCO have turned away from their noble ideals and have become strictly political. UNESCO now rewrites history in the most bizarre ways. King David built Jerusalem, and UNESCO passes a resolution that says Jerusalem was never Jewish. It was Palestinian. King Solomon built the temple, and UNESCO says, you didn't build that. The U.S. has pulled out of UNESCO, an organization that it helped build because of its radical political focus. But over the past year, we've finally seen a change, a breath of fresh air. President Trump sent a remarkable woman to the UN. Her name is Nikki Haley. And from her very first moment, Ambassador Haley did something profound. She did not just speak the truth, she demanded it. And this fearless woman has set a new standard for other countries to follow. There is something else that's important to say today. In 1947, the Israelis accepted the division of their ancestral land in order to live side by side with their Arab neighbors. Israelis did not get back their homeland. They got a piece of it. They understood the realities. They accepted they could not have it all. But the Arab people did not. And after 70 years, too many of them still don't. Israel has never denied the right of the Palestinian Arabs to their sovereignty. Israel agreed to it in 1947, agreed it again in 1967, when it offered to return all the lands conquered in the Six-Day War for peace and recognition. Israel agreed to 2 states in Oslo in 1993, and again at Camp David in 2000, when President Bill Clinton was there. Israel asked for a negotiated peace treaty over and over again to create a 2-state solution. Perhaps it's Jewish optimism or just Jewish stubbornness that they keep trying. I actually believe that at this moment in time, and against all odds, a 2-state solution is quite possible. First, I have known Donald Trump for more than 50 years. I have never seen a president more committed to finding a solution. Also, I have met with leaders throughout the Arab world who now support a 2-state solution. They now realize there are much greater dangers in the Middle East today than Israel. You might call this a change of attitude. I might call it a miracle. We're talking about a land that has seen many, many miracles. David Ben-Gurion, who said, to be a realist in Israel, you have to believe in miracles. Let us learn a lesson from 1947. 70 years ago, on every continent, with people with no vested interest, voted for partition, not for political reasons, not for economic reasons, not out of self-interest. They voted to create a modern state of Israel because it was the right thing to do. It is my hope, my strongest desire, that rather than use the UN to cast votes based on politics, countries should do just the right thing. Finally, there's one last part of this 1947 story that I think is very important to remember. There was one place where the vote was very poignant. It was in displaced persons camps throughout Germany and Austria. When the news of the UN vote was announced, tens of thousands of Holocaust survivors from Dachau, Treblinka, and Auschwitz sang Hatikva with tears in their eyes because the words of the Zionist national anthem fulfilled the promise made by God to live as a free people in our land. When the Jews in the displaced persons camps and more than 750,000 Jews who were immediately expelled from Arab countries and Jews around the world were finally allowed to return to their homeland, they were greeted with just 2 words, Baruchim Habayim, welcome home. 70 years ago on this very spot, the world voted to trust the Jewish people in their own homeland. And 7 years later, the Jewish people have proven themselves to be more than worthy of that trust. With loving care, the Israeli people broke the back of the land and built a thriving democracy. Let us hope that one day this extends to all people in that troubled region. May God bless the good people who voted in this room 70 years ago for the creation of modern Jewish state. May God bless all the people who supported it and died for it. And may God finally bring peace to this very special place where He chose to speak to us and showed us His loving grace. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Lauder. As I mentioned, the State of Israel has no better friend than the United States of America. It was in 1947. It was also true in 1948 when we declared independence. And the State of Israel has no better friend today than the US, not only in the UN, everywhere. The Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence, has been a true friend of Israel for decades. We are so glad that he will be visiting our beautiful country in just a few weeks. We are honored to have him here with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence.
Hi guys, if you are on the stream, just checking in with you from the Fox 5 DC digital newsroom. You're watching this commemoration of the 70th anniversary of the vote at the UN, and this right here is taking place at the UN. We're going to hear the Vice President speak. He's going to give the keynote address here, and then we'll come back into the newsroom to chat for more. So stay on with us on the stream, and we'll see you soon.
Ambassadors from over 60 countries, distinguished guests, my fellow Americans, and my fellow friends of Israel. We gather today on the eve of a historic anniversary to celebrate what happened here in this very hall 70 years ago when the United Nations declared to the modern world an ancient truth that the Jewish people have a natural, irrevocable right to an independent state in their ancestral and eternal homeland. And in this room, they called for the creation of the Jewish state of Israel. I'm deeply humbled to join you today to commemorate this vote and to celebrate the courage, the perseverance, and the faith of the Jewish people that made it possible. And I bring the congratulations as well and the unwavering support of a great champion of the State of Israel and a lifelong friend of her people, the 45th President of the United States of America, President Donald Trump. The President asked me to be here today to remember the day when the United States of America joined 32 other nations to support the creation of the State of Israel, and to express our appreciation for all who support the Jewish people and the Jewish state of Israel to this day. But most of all, the President sent me here with a simple message. It's the same message he delivered earlier this year when he visited the city of Jerusalem, that under our administration, America will always stand with Israel. You know, it's fitting that we gather today in this hall. This building is no stranger to history. Over nearly 80 years, it has hosted some of the world's greatest achievements in technology, art, and international diplomacy. But what happened here in 1947 was perhaps the most important historic event of all. In the middle of the 20th century, the eyes of the world turned here to Flushing Meadows, the first home of the United Nations. That body was forged in the fading embers of the Second World War. a cataclysm that raised nearly as many questions as it answered, and none more significant than the fate suffered by the Jewish people. The horrors of the Holocaust reminded the world that the safety and the freedom of the Jewish people could not be secured without an independent Jewish state, sovereign, free, and capable of defending itself by itself. So in May 1947, less than 2 years after its inception, the United Nations formed the Special Commission on Palestine to propose paths forward for that region. And on November 29, 1947, 70 years ago tomorrow, the General Assembly gathered in this great hall and passed Resolution 181, calling for the creation of the Jewish state of Israel. Now, to be clear, Israel needed no resolution to exist, for Israel's right to exist is self-evident and timeless. Nor did that resolution create the state of Israel, for Israel was born of the sweat and sacrifice of the Jewish pioneers who risked everything to reclaim their beloved lands with, in those well-remembered words, with a plow in one hand and a rifle in another. They turned the desert into a garden, scarcity into plenty, and an age-old dream into a reality. And their striving and their sacrifice laid the foundation for what took place in this hall 70 years ago. And only 6 months later, the Jewish state of Israel was born, answering the ancient question first asked by the prophet Isaiah: can a country be born in one day? Can a nation be born in a moment? It happened when on May 14th, 1948, Israel declared the natural right of the Jewish people to be the masters of their own fate, like all other nations in their own sovereign state. While Israel was built by human hands, it's impossible not to see the hand of heaven leading its people, writing their history in the restoration of this ancient people to their land of their birth. In fact, the God of Abraham told his people, and I quote, "Even if you've been banished to the most distant land under the heavens, from there I will gather you and bring you back to the land which your fathers possessed." It was an ancient promise cherished by Americans since before our nation's founding. And it was a promise the Jewish people clung to through all the ages, through a 2,000-year exile, the longest of any people anywhere. And they were rewarded for their faith. As President Trump has said, Israel is a testament to the unbreakable spirit of the Jewish people. The United States of America was proud to support Resolution 181. We were proud to be the first nation in the world to recognize Israel's independence soon after. And we were proud to stand by Israel and the Jewish people ever since. And under President Donald Trump, let me assure you of this: if the world knows nothing else, the world will know this: America stands with Israel. America stands with Israel because her cause is our cause. Her values are our values, and her fight is our fight. We stand with Israel because we believe in right over wrong, good over evil, freedom over tyranny. We stand with Israel because the bond between our nations was knit before either one of them came to be. President Trump dedicated our administration to strengthen that bond, to deepen the friendship between our nations. And he's demonstrated our unwavering commitment recently in his visit to Israel in May of this year. For my part, I will reiterate the President's message and reaffirm our historic relationship when my family and I travel to Israel next month. On my visit, it'll be my great honor to address the members of the Knesset, to walk on the hallowed ground of that holy city that King David built more than 3,000 years ago, and to pay our respects and breathe a prayer at Yad Vashem. In this season of reverence and grace, for millions around the globe, I'll also bring a message of respect and gratitude to the Jewish people for their strength of will, the strength of character, and for all that they've given humanity over the millennium. But I'll also bring a message of resolve and commitment to draw the United States and Israel even closer together and to stand together in defense of all that we hold dear. President Trump has already taken concrete steps to deepen the ties between our two nations, and nowhere is that more evident than in the very body whose vote we commemorate today, the United Nations. More than 50 years ago, President John F. Kennedy warned that the United Nations must never be allowed to become, in his words, a forum for invective. But today, sadly, with regard to Israel, too often it's become exactly that, a forum for invective in the form of anti-Semitism and hatred. But with the leadership of our president, the efforts of our ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, the days of Israel bashing at the United Nations are over. Within the Human Rights Council and across the United Nations, Ambassador Haley has advanced reforms to put an end to the blatant bias and discrimination that was too often the reality in the recent past at the UN. And President Trump has withdrawn the United States from one of the UN's most anti-Israel bodies, UNESCO. And beyond the walls of the United Nations, our president is working tirelessly to strengthen the historic friendship between the United States and Israel. I'm pleased to report today that America's support for Israel's security is at a record level today. And while for the past 20 years, Congress and successive administrations have expressed a willingness to move our embassy, as we speak, President Donald Trump is actively considering when and how to move the American embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And as the president has made clear, our administration is also committed to finally bringing peace to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. As Trump has said, in his words, we want Israel to have peace. And in the recent months, we've made valuable progress toward achieving that noble goal. And while compromise will be necessary, you can be assured, President Donald Trump will never compromise the safety and security of the Jewish state of Israel. The President has made clear that under this administration, America once again stands with our allies and stands up to our enemies. And our two nations stand together to confront any who dare to threaten us, most especially the menace of radical Islamic terror. It does not matter what name it takes, Hezbollah, Hamas, Al-Qaeda, or any other. You can be assured that we will defeat the forces of terror so they can no longer threaten our people, our allies, or our way of life. And under President Trump, America and Israel once again stand together in the face of the leading state sponsor of terrorism. President Trump has put Iran on notice. Just last month, the President laid out a new strategy to oppose Iranian efforts to destabilize the region and jeopardize Israel's security. As he has said, in his words, the longer we ignore the threat, the more dangerous that threat becomes. That's why President Trump announced that we will not certify the Iran nuclear deal, and we will no longer tolerate Tehran's support for terrorism across the region and across the wider world. As we speak, our administration is working closely with leaders in Congress to craft legislation that will overcome the Iran nuclear deal's most glaring failures. And while this process is still underway, today I can assure you, under President Trump, the United States of America will not allow Iran to develop a nuclear weapon. This is our solemn promise to you, to Israel, and to the world. History attests that enmity toward the Jewish people often turns from evil thought to evil action. And over the years, there's hardly been a day when the people of Israel have lived without war, or the fear of war, or the grim reality of terror. But no matter the challenges they face or the slanders they endure, the Jewish people always persevere. For even in the darkness, the light of their faith, their strength, and their hope shines bright. It was faith that led them to return to their ancient homeland. It was hope that spurred them to build a state to call their own. It was love. Love for each other and a love for freedom that inspired the people of Israel to greatness since the hour of their birth. Today we celebrate and we marvel at all that the people of Israel have accomplished. We remember those who sacrificed so much for Israel's existence and those brave men and women who stand sentry to this very day. We praise their resolve and their courage in this time of widening challenges and unknowable threats. And while today we celebrate the vote that took place in the United Nations 70 years ago tomorrow, every day we celebrate the strength and vitality of the Jewish people and the Jewish state of Israel. Israel is an eternal testament to the unwavering fortitude of her people, to the unfathomable...
Hi guys, just checking in with you from the newsroom. It's Molly here. You are watching Vice President Pence deliver the keynote address here at this 70th year commemoration of the establishment of the Jewish state. It was established the next year in 1948, and they're there at the UN where the vote took place in 1947. So thanks for hanging on with us here, guys. We're going to finish out this because it is live. We want to keep it really relevant, and then we'll come back in and talk a little more social media, some other holiday weekend stuff, and just what we've been up to. And I'm really excited to tell you all about what I've been up to and what we got to do last week, especially if you didn't get to join us on Friday. So without further ado, let's get back to this as he closes out this speech, and then we'll come back in and talk a little social media. All right, thanks for hanging on.
The Jewish people lay in a state they could call their own. And today, with faith in that future and in that hope, we recommit ourselves to stand with Israel, to pursue a brighter future for both our peoples, our nations, and for the world. And with the friendship and courage of our citizens, with the commitment of our leaders, and with the guidance of Providence, I say with confidence, the United States and Israel will meet that bright future together. Thank you. May God continue to bless and protect the Jewish state of Israel and all her people, and may God continue to bless the United States of America.
Our thanks to Vice President Pence, and we hope he has a great time in Jerusalem and the rest of Israel when he goes. Danny, make sure that you take him to that falafel stand in the Old City, the good one. They're all good. They're all good. Obviously, the commitment that America has to the Jews has been underscored by what the Vice President said, and it is a wonderful thing to hear. Israel, of course, deserves it. Israel is known as the startup nation. Hello, Waze? Does anybody even know how to read a map anymore because of Israel's Waze company? SodaStream, started by an Israeli. Israelis are a nation of problem solvers. President Shimon Peres, if any of you have ever heard him speak, he often likes to point out with a little bit of humor that Israel has two bodies of water, one dead, one dying. And yet, Israel has no water shortage at all. I mean, for somebody who grew up in California, that's incredible to me because we haven't figured it out just yet. But without leaning on anyone or any nation, Israel has solved its own problems. But on that day back in 1947, it all came down to a vote in this room, and Israel had nations that it desperately needed. Let us return to that incredible moment in 1947 that changed the course of the world.
Since their exile over 2,000 years ago, the Jewish people have longed for a return to their homeland. In the late 19th century, this innate hope, along with the rampant anti-Semitism revealed by the Dreyfus Affair, inspired journalist Theodor Herzl to conceive a revolutionary idea, perhaps the most ambitious in the history of modern Jewry. In 1896, Herzl proposed the creation of a Jewish state in the historic homeland of the Jewish people. Empowered by this bold idea, Herzl founded the Zionist Organization and held the first Zionist Congress in Basel, Switzerland, 1897. This was the beginning of a long, difficult journey. Roughly 2 decades later, in 1917, the Balfour Declaration was a public statement made by the British government announcing their support for a national home for the Jewish people. For the first time, Zionism was legitimized by a major power. In the years following, fascist regimes emerged across Europe. Persecution of Jews exploded, and anti-Semitism evolved into outright hatred and murder. The urgency for a Jewish state became pronounced. During World War II, the Nazis systematically killed more than 6 million Jews during the Holocaust. More than 1 million of those were children. Who was there to stand up for the Jews? Who was there to fight the treachery? In the wake of the largest genocide in human history, the United Nations held the future of the Zionist dream in their hands. 70 years ago on this day, in this building, in this very room, the chance to create the State of Israel and the fate of a nation was put up for a vote.
We will start it now.
Afghanistan, no. Argentina, abstention. Australia, yes. Belgium, yes. Bolivia, yes. Brazil, yes. Belarus, yes. Canada, yes. Chile, abstention. China, abstention. Colombia, abstention. Costa Rica, yes. Cuba, no. Czechoslovakia, yes. Denmark, yes. Dominican Republic, yes. Ecuador, yes. Egypt, no.
All right, guys, our stream is about to end, so we hope that you've enjoyed this coverage. Really interesting stuff, whether, whatever side you're on, live from the UN, recounting this vote from 70 years ago for the Jewish state of Israel to become a nation. So really glad to have you guys on the stream. You can see I'm joined by Raisa, our social media girl, to chat a little more. We're getting a little bit of an announcement, but we're gonna take some just casual chatter and talk a little about our weekend and the holidays and what we just social topics. What we're gonna talk about today.
Yeah.
So much going on. First of all, can we start with throwing that into the camera?
Let me throw this in your face.
Because you guys know what the news is today. It's the royal engagement.
I'm not engaged. Let's flip it over.
We'll talk about that in a second because we do have some video to play out about that. Obviously, it's making the rounds on social, on all the TV stations, all the interviews with Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. It's the news.
Considering it's cuffing season, so what perfect timing. Cuffing season. I'm bittersweet about that word, but let's just
odd
leave
one.
it at that. It's a little weird one, yeah.
Yeah, Schultze and Iran, thanks guys for coming on. Really, I thought so too. Really interesting to see that vote. And like I said, we would have kept it on, but we were just about to lose the stream. But very interesting historical setting there for them to hold this commemorative event. And then, of course, the vice president making the speech, the keynote speech as well. Not too long, so I thought that was good to take on the stream today. Yeah.
Good coverage, Mom.
I hope so. Well, I'm trying to keep it interesting. Oh, you guys, trying to keep it interesting. I know some of you were on Friday. It was such a quiet, slow Friday day because it was Black Friday. So we had some people in here working.
Yeah.
A lot of people were out on holiday. As you know, and you guys have been commenting, I've been sick. A lot of people in this newsroom are sick. It's that season. Like, it's the time of the year. 'Tis the season to be, trying to recover.
You have to be locked in with that hand sanitizer, that Lysol air freshener. Kills 99.9% of bacteria.
Yeah.
So we're told. So I have one handy by my desk.
I know you do. I use it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. But for you guys who were asking, yeah, I think some of you saw on Friday, but I was able to go down on the field on Thursday night, which was awesome.
So cool.
Maybe that was part of me getting even sicker. It was cold, but here's the thing. It was so amazing, so worth it. And really great to go with Fox 5 credentials and hang out with our sports reporter and our camera photojournalist, Steve Williams. And yeah, we had a great time. Oh, Schultze, not knowing how to spell your name. Raisa, yeah, you got it, Iran. Nice.
Oh,
R-A-I-S-A.
R-A-I-S-A.
All right, you guys got it.
Yes.
Super cool. So that was the Thursday, and then rolling into the Thanksgiving weekend. I guess we were, technically we were off, and then I was out yesterday. So thanks so much for you guys who are noticing and sending me well wishes because I just needed a day to recover. So I'm back. Yeah, I'm so glad you guys are.
Her too, she's my partner in crime here. So it was like a little quiet. I'm like, who am I gonna do Snapchat with? I'm gonna feel weird doing it by myself. So Molly's back in the game. Thank goodness.
Ditto.
That
She's
Monday was a drag.
I know. Totally. So. Anyway, we're going to talk some interesting topics today. Oh, yeah, another drag. Okay.
Where can we get started?
I know.
So
there's so much. It's
Christmas.
Christmas.
Let's talk about that.
Okay, I have a whole thing that we're going to talk about.
gosh,
all right, and we'll play. I want to know this. Are you guys interested in the royal engagement? Is it really that interesting? I'm not going to try to go either way. But I'm not as drawn to all the coverage. I mean, we're going to make sure we have it. We're going to cover it. People are going to get up early to watch this wedding just like they did. If you guys didn't know, it just broke like a few hours ago that they did book Kensington Palace for May for the wedding. So it will be a big event. People are going to cover it. Obviously, there's the entertainment world, right? Because she's in Hollywood. She's an American actress. The royal world. I don't know. Is this a big talker? I want to know what you guys think.
Yeah, does it fascinate you guys? Does it hit home? Does it hit your heart? You know what hit my heart out of all of this was the fact that he used Princess Diana's diamonds for the ring.
Oh, definitely. And that's part of the interview. They do talk about it.
Yeah.
The connect his mom.
That's what I really like the most because I think there was this quote that I read somewhere where he said, it's moments like this where I wish I could share with her, but I can't because she's not around. So I was like, oh, that's so sweet. So
I think that'll be part of the interview that we show.
That's my favorite thing out of all of this. I mean, I'm so happy for them. Congratulations to the couple. He seems like, he's in love with her. And when he was asked, how did you know? He was like, from day one, from the get-go. When we were, what were they doing? I think roasting hens or something like that.
And like chicken.
Yeah,
they dated for like 15 months.
Yeah.
Not even, a year and a half, less.
A little less than that, yeah. Because how long were Kate and...
I forget, but I feel like they knew each other way younger.
College, too,
yes.
for sure.
They knew each other, weren't necessarily dating. Some interesting stats that we are finding out, of course, about Meghan. She is biracial, mixed race. And she is 36. She's divorced.
She's a divorcee, and I feel like a lot of people don't know this. I didn't until my mom and dad spilled beans yesterday, and I was like, wait,
you guys were chatting about it. I love it.
You
Her
guys
parents
know more than
super
me.
into it.
I'd love to know. So I think that's something that a lot of people don't know, that she is a she was previously married, and I know some people have, just from reading on social media, contradicting feelings on that. Like, okay, she's a divorcee, but she is basically marrying royalty. How does that work out? I know a lot of people, well, from comments that I've read, they're not for it. They're like, no, that's not right. That's completely improper.
Really?
I mean, hey, it's 2017, and what is proper
anything
now?
goes, right?
Anything goes.
Well, Calix is saying he never really followed any of the royal family, didn't really interest him that much. That's totally fair. I mean, there's people on both sides of that. We were chatting in the newsroom this morning, and even some of our social queens of the gossip and the celebrity stuff weren't that into it, and that's totally normal to me.
Absolutely. I mean, to each his own. To each his own.
Yeah, classic. Really good. And then Aaron saying it seems less historical than William and Kate since they're going to see the throne. That's totally true.
I think so.
Because Harry won't.
Because what, he's fifth in line?
Yeah, I don't know. You might know better than I do.
I think he's fifth in line. And this is going back to my mom and dad's references. They know more than I do. They were literally like, oh, she's divorcee. She's from here. She's from there. She's mixed. I'm like, whoa, guys, calm down. So from what they said, I think she's fifth in line.
Okay.
Don't quote me.
I love your parents to know.
He's fifth in line. I know. My parents know more than me. But as they always do, right?
That's great. I love that.
Yeah. So you said they're getting married in May. Was there an exact date that was announced?
Let me see. Oh, I don't think so.
Okay.
But that would
that
be,
it's
people are going to
May.
start marking that on
sure.
their calendars for sure. Let me see if I can play
Yeah.
a little picture just so we can like couple it up. We'll play this interview later, but I'll just show you guys what they look like. This was the sit-down interview in the ring.
Gorgeous ring.
Yeah. So not to beat this to death, obviously, but it's like it's a hot topic and people
It
are
is.
chatting about it.
It just happened yesterday.
Yeah, that's right. It almost seems like it was. Yeah, it's been all over, so it almost seems like it was before. But there they are, and people commenting on like the normalcy of her being an American actress. But I mean, there's also like specialness to that as well. She's like a cut above. You know, she's an actress and she's making her way, and she's from LA, I believe. And yeah, interesting couple. They're cute, definitely beautiful.
Yeah, no,
beautiful both of
They're
them.
gonna have gorgeous babies.
Yeah,
They're both
they
gorgeous.
do mention that in the interview. They're saying they mentioned like, oh, do you guys want to, or have you thought about that? And they laugh and like hint at it or something. And they're like not right now. I forget what he says, but you'll see it. You'll see it when we play it.
Okay.
But anyways, there's that. Okay, and then guys, there's this social like stats coming out about the most popular Christmas songs. Dude, it's already Christmassy everything.
I know.
Like certain radios are playing only Christmas music, and we haven't really gotten into it here in the newsroom yet.
No,
It's not too much.
It's not too much. I mean, we've decked out the loft. We do have a
Upstairs.
Christmas tree up now.
Oh, I don't think I even.
Yeah, it's right in the corner.
Oh,
It's in the
yeah.
corner. It's not like a super obvious location. But they did put that up. And what else? I mean, I don't know. Have you started getting your home together?
I'm totally
I know
curious
a
what
lot of
everybody.
people have.
Well, yeah, like it depends, like sort of what you do for the holidays. Obviously, there's the various holidays that people celebrate.
Sure.
I not really. I haven't put up any. I don't know.
No,
I'm
that's
like
okay.
I'm really excited to
No
go home.
Grinch.
I will
No,
end
it's
up going
okay.
home. You guys know I didn't go home for Thanksgiving, but I'll end up going home. I know the Grinch for
No.
Christmas, which is so exciting, and it's really beautiful in New England. So I'm excited to get back to family for that, and that's where I think the decor will like bring me into the spirit.
Yes.
You know.
It's something about being home for the holidays. It's just so magical. I think that's what really makes it, I don't know, enchanting, magical, beautiful, just heartwarming. Just being home with family, remembering, you know, how it was growing up, spending these special days with, you know, whatever close loved ones you have. So I think that's what makes it amazing.
Well, we were reading some of these stats. The top, I guess it's like
Oh, yeah, what's the top song?
the top song for Office playlist.
Okay.
And this is like a LinkedIn, Spotify team of like stats and like polling or whatever.
Yeah.
And like it doesn't surprise me at all. Do you guys have a guess? If anybody cares about Christmas music, it is Mariah Carey. All I Want for Christmas Is You.
Really?
I wasn't surprised about that. The second one is Wham! Last Christmas, which you
Okay.
hear in every freaking store all the time when you're shopping.
This is true.
It's like
I'm really
so
thinking,
wild.
I'm like, yeah, that one. Yeah, for sure, Mariah Carey.
But this is Office.
Wait, what's the third one?
Third one is, I know this list. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas, the Michael Bublé version.
Okay.
It goes down the list. Feliz Navidad is on there.
Of course.
A bunch of other stuff. Some Elvis, some Bruce Springsteen.
Okay.
Blah, blah, blah. The
Elton
classics.
John.
Frank Sinatra's way low down. Let It Snow,
Hey.
17.
Can we give him a little more love?
I
love
know, the
Frank.
classics. I saw somebody post today, they were like, Christmas music is not real unless it's the old school, like Dean Martin,
I
like
agree.
old school actual Christmas music that you would get on those old
I completely
tapes and CDs.
Oh gosh, yeah. I completely agree.
So it's kind of a fun little that we're learning about.
I think me and you are gonna have to start bumping this little playlist because there ain't that much holiday spirit in the newsroom.
Like we're gonna be the only ones cranking it at our desk.
Exactly. But you know what? That's okay.
Oh my God.
What are we hearing?
I'm just like getting some things, and we were just seeing that. I know there's so many things flying at me right now. We have a couple things coming in from the Hill, but I want to do a little more social media before we go. Sure. I guess Chuck Schumer is about to speak on the Senate floor about why I think the president isn't coming to the Hill today or something, which is interesting because, they canceled their meeting with Trump. He's going to speak at that. If I see Schumer on the floor, we can take that if it's interesting. So, not to be all about politics, I always want to include like some of the social stuff.
I know. Wait, speaking of social stuff, because this was the social talker for me in the morning.
Was this the house?
Guys,
oh, wait.
Can we look at Molly's shirt real quick?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Do you guys, what do you guys see?
All right, you guys can't see it because the GoPro, I can't get that.
Put your
sleeve up. Because every time I see it.
What is it?
I see T-Rexes.
Like from here, though, you guys just thought that was a pattern, right? Obviously, it's an animal.
It's an animal, and I see it
multiplied times over. And yeah, I love that she sees a dinosaur. Let me know what you guys think.
How cute is that?
I think originally,
dinosaur short.
That's so cool. Because we were just talking about Kevin McCarthy's in Hawaii, and he got to take a picture where they filmed Jurassic Park, and he's like doing all this Hawaii stuff, and Jurassic Park is so relevant to there. So I was thinking about dinosaurs and how much I love that movie. But and then Risa was like, "This looks like dinos." But yeah, that's the poll of today, guys. What is this on my shirt? Right. One last look.
You know what?
You guys tell me what you see. I know, on the stories.
Yeah.
You guys tell me. And then we'll get back to serious news topics. All right, I want to know what you guys think. Awesome. Okay. Schultze saying, Risa, you look beautiful today. What was that ring about? Did you get engaged?
Oh,
nope.
No. It's just a crown ring. So a little backstory behind this one. It is a crown. It's a crown, as you saw. It is my princess ring because my mom has the queen ring because hers has diamonds. So whenever I have kids, her thing is she'll give me the queen ring and then I'll be able to pass down this ring to my daughter and so on and so forth. So we're trying to get a little something going for future kids, family, planning ahead, I guess.
That's awesome. I was just waving to Rob, and obviously there's.
Hello.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness.
I have a cupcake and coffee.
I just saw that there was a cupcake. Where are those?
They're in my pocket here.
Oh my God, guys.
No, they're not in my pocket. Just take the lint off. No, they're inside.
Are they?
This
is Rob. You guys have seen him before TOC.
Hi, everyone.
That is
when
like
he's actually doing work.
Pick me up snack right there. Coffee and cupcakes.
It is.
Double C's. I love
it. Iced it. Neat.
Even better, so he could chug it.
Okay, I gotta go. Bye, everyone.
All right, bye.
Okay. So yeah, isn't he great? He's a character, Rob. Okay, so we're talking about so many different topics. That's a really great story about your ring. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah, my mom's always thinking ahead.
I love the crown. Also, it's relevant because we're talking about the royal.
Exactly.
And thank you guys for saying that you liked my taste in this shirt. I thought this was a fun shirt. I pulled it out of my closet and I was like, it's fun.
I love it.
Looks like two dinosaurs fighting each other. Yeah, maybe. I think it's supposed to maybe be cheetahs or cats, but we're not really quite sure.
I think someone said cats, yeah.
Pearl Jam, Let Me Sleep, It's Christmas Time is Kellogg's song. Nice. I like the throwing it back to the 90s rock. Anything that goes back to that. I was hearing a bunch of Nirvana in the coffee shop this weekend and I was like, heck yeah. Throw it back. And Rob with this cupcake, yeah. So we got a little button from Rob. But.
Yeah.
Okay.
Love it.
We want to talk about this cool house. We just put this on Instagram. Right, Rice?
Yeah, we just threw it up there.
Tell us a little more about this.
All right, guys, so 2 Chainz is filling the holiday season. So there's this pink trap house in Atlanta that debuted, I believe it was this summer. If I'm not mistaken, it was the last summer.
Okay.
Nonetheless, it drew many people. Many people visited this home, took pictures with it. I mean, it's a cool pink house. I think there's trap music playing in the background. So that did well on social. Well, with the holiday season coming up, 2 Chainz decided, hey, let's deck out the halls and make it a little bit more festive. So, as you see in this picture that Molly's showing, you have a pink caddy with lit lights.
That's cool.
And then you have
Frosty and his family creeping in the back, and of course, as you see right in the front, it says trap. So
creeping.
I think it's pretty cool. I mean, if we had one here, I would visit it because why not?
I love that Cadillac.
Yeah, me
do you
too.
guys are you guys into the lights and stuff? I mean, do people in your neighborhoods do it? I'm curious about because I know you guys live all over. I guess it kind of depends, like what city you're in and what neighborhood.
Yeah.
But it's cool to see them. And you were out on sort of like a light tour this weekend.
Yeah, I live for the festive holiday lights, and I went out to a farm in Chantilly in Virginia. I live in Virginia.
Yeah.
It's like about an hour away. Not too bad, but I mean, yeah, a little bit much if you're gonna go see Christmas lights. But it was beautiful. They completely transformed the grounds of this farm into a winter wonderland. They had a jungle. They had a section where there were pirates, and they had a section of where they were hoarding their booty. And Cinderella made a little debut there. It was just gorgeous. So I'd live for the Christmas lights if you guys are local, or if you plan on visiting.
Yeah.
DC, we do have a story where you can find some of the best holiday lights and events happening in Virginia and Maryland for
we do have a story. You guys can grab it on our website.
Yeah.
And it's it lists. I know some of you aren't local, but the DMV area, DC, Maryland, Virginia, and like she said, some of the different areas that she visited and or that are available for light viewing. And this is one of her. I'm gonna copy this pic if I can get it. It's a little wide, but let me see if I can get it. All right, it's the best I can do.
But I think the national tree lighting is.
That's the pic.
Is it this week?
Yeah. So the national tree lighting by the White House, the actual one, is we have to look it up. But this is Rice's pick from the weekend. Yes. That's awesome.
How cool is that?
Love it.
Beautiful. I love the lights, guys. Anything like with Christmas lights.
So pretty.
I'm so happy.
And that was at one of them in Virginia. And then like you said, the actual official national lighting is. Let me go to it. It's the top one. I know.
It's the first one.
I think you're
right.
right.
To have that one in there. And the only reason why I'm bringing that one up is not only because it's lights, but if you're unable to, make it, and if you're not local, you can always catch it on TV.
Right. It's the big one.
Monday.
It's right by the White House. It's this Thursday, the 30th?
It is Thursday. Okay.
What's today? The 28th? The 29th is Wednesday. Yeah, the 30th is Thursday. It's 5 p.m. right by the White House, 15th and 17th Streets. You do need the ticket, and months prior to this, they have you kind of register or try to get in a lottery for tickets.
Yeah. That's how it works.
And then it's on TV, I guess.
And then it's on TV that following Monday. So for you guys that aren't local, you can totally catch it on there, and I'm pretty sure we'll have a lot of social coverage on that. And Molly will bring it to you guys for sure.
Oh, for sure. We'll do some snaps, some Instagram.
Snap, Instagram.
Yeah, good stuff. That covers basically the holiday stuff I wanted to dip into since we've moved on from Thanksgiving finally, and now we're into oh my gosh, it'll be December.
It came and then it left. Like it was quick, and now, like you said, it's December. Christmas is around the corner. New Year's. Have you made plans yet?
Oh my goodness, yeah, it's coming up. Yeah. I have not, and I'm thinking about some options. Not quite sure what I'm going to do yet.
Yeah.
But it always comes up really fast. So definitely want to hear from you guys too, guys. Keep the conversation going as always. Pete, really good to see you. I just saw you come on a little earlier. Some people liking your pick, Raisa.
Oh.
And yeah, we're loving the Christmas lights too. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, we'll try to bring you more of that stuff as we have it. But
Capitol Hill, where the president is arriving.
All right, yeah. So we'll switch it up. We'll go back to politics and let Raisa go do some stuff.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thanks for chatting. We'll do more at social media, but we try to keep it varied so you guys are interested. And like I said, guys, thanks so much for the well wishes and for even checking in on Friday when it was kind of just a meager day on Fox 5 Live. But Black Friday, we had some shopping stuff. And we had a little bit of breaking news too, which was fun. So we're going to keep it rolling. And right now, Chuck Schumer is on the floor talking about why he's canceled his meeting with Trump. And then also we have the president's arrival coming to us live. We'll just take both videos and bring you both at the same time so you can check into that. And with that, we're going to switch it up, guys. The president is arriving on Capitol Hill, and then Chuck Schumer speaking in the box, which will be on your right. All right, cool. Bye, Steph. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Don't even hear our Republican colleagues bragging about this product with a few exceptions. Everyone says this could be better, that could be better, this could be better. Every independent analysis has shown that the tax bill will end up raising taxes on millions of middle-class families, despite the early intentions of the president, the Republican leaders. The Tax Policy Center estimates that 60% of middle-class families will see a tax increase. 60% of middle-class families will see a tax increase by the time the bill is fully implemented, while folks making over $1 million a year would get an average tax cut of over $40,000. Now, some say, well, they're making more money, they should get a bigger tax break. No. I'd like to take every dollar of that $40,000 a millionaire gets and give it to the middle class. They're the ones who need the help, not the wealthy people. They're the ones who buy the products, keep the economy humming. They're the ones throughout the 50s, 60s, and 70s created the best economy America's ever had, not just the few millionaires. It's astounding. If the president and Republicans in Congress set out to pass a middle-class tax cut, as they claim, if that's where they set out, this bill completely misses the mark. Meanwhile, the big winners, big corporations, the very wealthy are doing great already. Estimates, estates worth over $11 million get a tax break. Why is that? Why is that when average middle-class people are struggling? Corporations get a permanent reduction in their rates, while individual tax breaks expire after a few years. The bill would even open up drilling in the Atlantic National Wildlife Refuge, because this tax bill wouldn't be complete unless it helped big oil, too. All of this to saddle the next generation of Americans with larger deficits, even larger debt, something many of my friends on the other side of the aisle have labored against their whole careers. We've heard so many speeches from the other side about deficit reduction. I think my colleagues were sincere. Why are they abandoning it now? They all know, every one of our colleagues knows, that we could do a lot better job in a tax bill at reducing the deficit than we have here. Democrats have, from the very beginning, told our Republican colleagues we want to work with them on tax reform. We want to lower taxes on the middle class. We want to reduce burdens on small businesses. We want to erase the incentives that send jobs overseas and bring jobs back home. And we want to do all these things in a way that doesn't add to the deficit. Republicans from the very beginning have said to us, we're not interested in working with you. We're going to draft it ourselves. Use reconciliation so we don't need your votes. And you can count for our bill. You can vote for our bill if you want. That's not bipartisanship, what the Republican leadership has done. Now, I know there are some Republicans on the other side who wish we could work together. Well, we can. And today at 11 o'clock, I think more than a dozen, certainly a large number of Democrats went to the press gallery and said, we want to work with our Republican colleagues to create a better bill. They came and visited me last night. I encouraged them to do it. This leader is not going to stand in the way of bipartisan reform that meets the goals that we've talked about, helping the middle class, reducing the deficit, not unduly or in any way aiding the 1%. Bipartisanship and compromise, Mr. President, are very possible on tax reform. It's an issue crying out for a bipartisan solution. There are a lot of areas we agree. We have to work to find a middle ground that's acceptable to both parties. I dare say it would be a better bill for the American middle class than the one we're looking at right now. Finally, Mr. President, and briefly, because I know my colleagues are waiting, on the Katsas nomination. The D.C. Circuit is often called the second most powerful court in the nation because it adjudicates so many highly charged political issues, including cases that deal with the limits of executive power and regulations issued by federal agencies. As examples, major cases on climate regulations, CFPB, gun safety laws in the District of Columbia are now before that court. On such a court, we should prize independence, moderation, look warily at candidates with highly political backgrounds. Unfortunately, Gregory Katsas has been intimately involved in a number of the most partisan and legally dubious executive orders of the current administration. He was involved in the president's controversial travel ban, his decisions to terminate DACA, to end transgender service in the military, and to establish an election integrity commission based on the lie that 3.5 million people voted illegally in the last election. His tenure and views in the Trump administration raise important questions about his independence and moderation, particularly on a court that will likely hear cases related to the very same issues he worked on in the White House. He appears to be another example of the Republican majority pushing judges from a political extreme of their party as a way of advancing their interests in lieu of a legislative agenda which is founded. I will vote no on his nomination, urge all of my colleagues to do the same, and I yield the floor.
Morning business is closed. Under the previous order, the Senate will proceed to executive session and resume consideration of the following nomination, which the clerk will report.
Nomination, the Judiciary, Gregory G. Katsas of Virginia to be United States Circuit Judge for the District of Columbia Circuit.
Under the previous order, the Senate stands in recess until 4 p.m.
Believe it or not, they asked me that. Wait. That's his route right there, right? Yeah, it's 80 John's not going to be. No. Yeah. But he might stop, but I don't think so. Yeah, that could be 82. Yeah, I think so. You want the officer on the pole. Heads up. I don't know. Really? We redo this? Okay. Everybody up in your seat. sheets. You got that? I'm a little worried about the Sony. I'm going to need help with the wide shot. Fine. Oh, whoa, whoa.
Typical night
It's
for
a
us.
cozy night. It was what we're doing, just roasting chicken and
Roasting
having
chicken, trying to roast chicken.
trying to roast a chicken, and it was just an amazing surprise. It was so sweet and natural and very romantic. He got on one knee.
Of course.
Was it an instant yes from you?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I could barely let you finish proposing. I was like, "Can I say yes now?"
She didn't even let me finish. She said, "Can I say yes? Can I say yes now?" And then there was hugs, and I had the ring in my finger, and I was like, "Can I give you the ring?" She goes, "Oh yes, the ring." So no, it was a really nice moment. It was just the two of us, and I think I managed to catch her by surprise as well. So.
Yeah. And this is how long after you first met?
It would be a year and a half, a little bit more than that.
No, just about a year and a half. Yeah.
Which for most people would be quite a whirlwind. Is that how it's felt to you?
I don't think that I would call it a whirlwind in terms of our relationship. Obviously, there have been layers attached to how public it has become after we had a good 5-6 months almost with just privacy, which was amazing. But no, I think we were able to really have so much time just to connect, and we never went longer than 2 weeks without seeing each other, even though we were obviously doing a long distance relationship. So it's we made it work.
How did you first meet?
Yes, we first met. We were introduced actually by a mutual friend who
we should protect her privacy and not reveal too much of that.
And but it was literally through her, and then we met once and then twice back to back, 2 dates in London. Last July,
yes,
beginning of July, and then it was I think about 3, maybe 4 weeks later that I managed to persuade her to come and join me in Botswana, and we camped out with each other under the stars. She came and joined me for 5 days out there, which was absolutely fantastic. So then we were really by ourselves, which was crucial to me to make sure that we had a chance to get to know each other.
Yeah.
But the friend who introduced you, was she trying to set you up?
Yes, it was definitely a setup. It was a blind date.
It was a blind date,
and,
for sure.
And it's so interesting because we talk about it now, and even then, because I'm from the States, you don't grow up with the same understanding of the royal family. And so while I now understand very clearly there's a global interest there, I didn't know much about him. And so the only thing that I had asked her when she said she wanted to set us up was, I had one question. I said, well, is he nice? Because if he wasn't kind, it didn't seem like it would make sense. And so we went and met for a drink, and then I think very quickly into that we said, well, what are we doing tomorrow? We should meet again.
What are we doing tomorrow? Let's meet again. And then it was like, right, diaries. We need to get the diaries out and find out how we're going to make this work, because I was off to Africa for a month. She was working, and we just said, right, where's the gap? And the gap happened to be in the perfect place.
So how much did you, Prince Harry, know about Meghan? Had you seen her on TV?
No, I'd never even heard about her until this friend said Meghan Markle. I was like, right, okay, give me a bit of background. what's going on here? So no, I'd never watched Suits. I'd never heard of Meghan before, and I was beautifully surprised when I walked into that room and saw her, and there she was sitting there. I was like, okay, well, I really have to up my game and sit down and make sure I got a good chat.
I think for both of us, though, it was really refreshing, because given that I didn't know a lot about him, everything that I've learned about him, I learned through him, as opposed to having grown up around different news stories or tabloids or whatever else. Anything I learned about him and his family was what he would share with me, and vice versa. So for both of us, it was just a really authentic and organic way to get to know each other.
And was that quite refreshing for you in the way that you've been brought up, with a lot of people knowing a lot about you? Was it refreshing?
Or thinking they know.
Or thinking they know.
Yeah, no, it was hugely refreshing to be able to get to know someone who isn't necessarily within your circle, doesn't know much about me, I don't know much about her. So to be able to start almost afresh, right from the beginning, and getting to know each other step by step, and then taking that huge leap of only 2 dates, and then going effectively on holiday together in the middle of nowhere, and showing a tent together and all that kind of stuff. It was fantastic. It was absolutely amazing to get to know her as quickly as I did.
And starting a long-distance relationship, you were working on Suits, so you had, I imagine, a packed filming schedule. You've got lots of commitments of your own. How hard was it to keep things going?
It was,
It was just a choice, right? I think that very early on, when we realized we were going to commit to each other, that we knew we had to invest the time and the energy and whatever it took to make that happen. And so yes, with the filming schedule, it was not the easiest, because it of course included a lot of travel back and forth, but
I don't think you've had any idea what time zone you've been on for the last year and a half.
No.
Coming over here 4 days or a week, and then going back, and then straight into filming the next day, 4 a.m. wake-up calls on a Monday, straight into set, and
right off the plane and straight to set, just coming
I'm just
back
trying to stay as close as possible, but on 2 different time zones and 5 hours apart does have its challenges, but we made it work, and now we're here, so we're thrilled.
But in the case of your relationship, unlike for most people, there's this whole layer of what it means to get involved with someone from the royal family. How much of a sense did you have, Meghan, of the enormity of what you were getting into, what it might mean for your life?
I think I can very safely say, as naive as it sounds now, having gone through this learning curve in the past year and a half, I did not have any understanding of just what it would be like. I don't think either of us did that. We both said that, even though we knew that it would be.
Yeah, I tried to warn you as much as possible, but I think both of us were totally surprised by the reaction after the first 5-6 months of when we had to ourselves of what actually happened from then. So I think you can have as many conversations as you want and try and prepare as much as possible, but we were totally unprepared for what happened after that.
The scrutiny.
Well, all sorts.
Well, I mean, I think also because there's a misconception that because I have worked in the entertainment industry that this would be something I would be familiar with. But even though I've been on my show for, I guess, 6 years at that point, and working before that, I've never been part of tabloid culture. I've never been in pop culture to that degree, and lived a relatively quiet life, even though I focused so much on my job. And so that was a really stark difference out of the gate. But and I think we were just hit so hard at the beginning with a lot of mistruths that I made the choice to not read anything, positive or negative. It just didn't make sense, and instead we focused all of our energies just on nurturing our relationship. On us.
And some of that scrutiny, and you ended up making a very public statement about it, some of that scrutiny was centered around your ethnicity, Meghan. When you realized that, what did you think?
Of course, it's disheartening. It's a shame that is the climate in this world, to focus that much on that, or that would be discriminatory in that sense. But I think, at the end of the day, I'm really just proud of who I am and where I come from, and we have never put any focus on that. We've just focused on who we are as a couple. And so when you take all those extra layers away and all of that noise, I think it makes it really easy to just enjoy being together and tune all the rest of that out.
But now that it is all official, Prince Harry, do you have that sense that the combination of the two of you, your different backgrounds, that you together represent something new for the royal family?
I don't know if it's something new. I think it's for me, it's an added member of the family. It's another team player as part of the bigger team. And for all of us, what we want to do is be able to carry out the right engagements, carry out our work, and try and encourage others and the younger generation to be able to see the world in the correct sense, rather than perhaps having a distorted view. So the fact that I fell in love with Meghan so incredibly quickly was a sort of confirmation to me that everything, all the stars were aligned, everything was just perfect. It was this beautiful woman just sort of literally tripped and fell into my life. I fell into her life, and the fact that I know the fact that she'll be really unbelievably good at the job part of it as well, is obviously a huge relief to me, because she'll be able to deal with everything else that comes with it. But no, we're a fantastic team. We know we are, and we hope to over time try and have as much impact for all the things that we care about as much as possible.
I am very excited about that, yeah.
And Megan, given your acting and the profile you had, you'd already been involved in various causes, you've been an ambassador for UN Women. What about this new role? I mean, you're going to have a bigger platform, a bigger voice. What do you want to do with it?
I mean, how...
Sing.
Can you imagine? No, I'm not a singer. I think what's been really exciting as we talk about the transition of this out of my career but into the role is that, as you said, the causes that have been very important to me I can focus even more energy on, because very early out of the gate, I think you realize once you have access or a voice that people are willing to listen to, with that comes a lot of responsibility, which I take seriously. And at the same time, I think in these beginning few months and now being boots on the ground in the UK, I'm excited to just really get to know more about the different communities here, smaller organizations who are working on the same causes that I've always been passionate about under this umbrella. And also being able to go around to the Commonwealth. I think it's just the beginning of the...
There's a lot to do.
Really?
There's a lot to do.
And it's an immense change. You're getting a new country out of it, a husband, obviously, but also giving up your
nice.
career.
Yes, it's nice. Yes. But I don't see it as giving anything up. I just see it as a change.
It's a new challenge.
It's a new chapter, right? And also keep in mind, I've been working on my show for 7 years.
Guys, we're going to pull out of this interview for just a second. Remember, this was the first interview from the couple after they got engaged, and we have it for you. We can play it back for you, but we're getting in some live video from New York of another accuser of Harvey Weinstein. She's coming forward and speaking to the press, so we're going to go there and take that live. Then we'll come back to this interview in a little bit.
Rub his penis up and down, and I kept saying like no, and I just felt like so stupid, but at the same time I think a massive part of me had shut down, because going through it all now, it makes no sense that I didn't run out of the room, and all I was able to do is just to say no, and why, and him reassuring me and me believing him. He kept hold of me whilst I refused him, and forced me still to rub his penis until he came. He ejaculated all over the bathroom floor, and he then just stepped over it as though nothing happened.
Okay. All right, so following this incident, what was your contact with Harvey or the Weinstein Company?
Pardon?
Following this, what was your communication with either, when's the next time you communicated with the company, and then eventually talk about Harvey, last time you saw him?
The last time I had seen, since that incident in 2014, I've probably seen Harvey like 3-4 times since then at his BAFTAs after party. But the last time I saw Harvey Weinstein was May 2016, because February 2016 at his BAFTAs again. He advised me that his assistant in the London office was on maternity leave. But she's going to sort everything out, and I need to relax. But at this point, I'd been mentally battered, but I still was holding on to some type of hope that, I don't know. I think it's a bit all crazy now, but I still had some type of hope that something was going to happen. And he reassured me that everything's going to be taken care of when she gets back. So then I contacted Vanessa, and I told her what Harvey said, and she then advised me that she'll contact Charlotte and get her to deal with everything, send an email over so Charlotte could organize my appointment with Tess, and if I needed any more lessons or whatever support I need, they would provide that for me. Still, nothing was happening, and I was in communication with Vanessa for weeks on end, and she seemed like she really cared about me, and she wanted to be there for me, but still nothing was happening. So in May, I was at the Majestics at the Cannes Film Festival 2016, and I saw Harvey sitting in the lobby with Charlotte and 2 other young girls, and I approached and I spoke with Charlotte. I said to Charlotte, have you not received Vanessa's email? She said, I've not received anything from Vanessa. And at this point, I was like, are they? I thought, is this just a joke? And she said she's not received anything from Vanessa. And she said to me, I'm not working with Harvey anymore. I'm just here as his friend whilst he's sitting there. And he's just looking at me, and they're looking at me like, what the hell are you talking about? And he said, right, that's enough. Because it seemed as though he was worried in case I was gonna say. And I walked away. I got back to London and I contacted Vanessa and I told her everything which Harvey did to me. And I told her everything in the sense of like, he took advantage, he assaulted me, he forced me to do things with him that I wasn't comfortable with, and all these promises and how this has gone on for so many years, and it's like all the reassurance and it just made no sense. But and she was reassuring me, telling me that she's gonna organize a meeting herself personally. And she said to me that Harvey may have not realized the impact in which he had on my life, because I explained to her my therapy sessions and how much it's broken my trust in the industry, because I've looked up to Harvey as such a powerful influence. And for me, like, meeting him was, you know, like, he was like everything. Now I feel stupid to put so much trust in him, but that's what I thought at the time. And the reason why I said nothing for so long, because I thought if I ever wanted an opportunity in this industry, how could I ever, small me, to speak of this man, to say he has been inappropriate with me. People would look at me as, who the hell is this girl to say this about this god or powerful influence who is able to make such amazing things take place. But so yeah, so she said to me I should write a letter to him, and she kept reassuring me that he's a good man and he's been so good to her, and I should put in a letter everything in which I feel, and she would ensure this letter gets to him. And it was at that point I thought, this man has so much walls built up around him, and I had no chance, and I just felt completely played. So I didn't write that letter because I felt like the show will, which I don't believe she passed on to him. Like the email she said she was going to send Charlotte to ensure Charlotte got in touch with me, she did not send to Charlotte. And this letter of closure in which she's asking me to provide, I felt again she was just saying whatever she needed to make me feel better. So I never thought I would ever be able to talk about this.
One of the things that struck me when I first spoke to Katie was earlier this year, she had basically decided she was going to try to put this behind her, finally. It had controlled her life and caused her so much pain. And when she was speaking to me, she felt it was surreal that all of a sudden things had changed and there's this shift, and this powerful man now is vulnerable, and she's able to talk about it. And really because of the collective strength of these other brave women who've come forward, and Katie, and also very brave in coming forward and telling a very personal story. It's very hard to do, and hopefully this will really be the beginning of healing, which is so important. Many women in these cases go through a state of what's called tonic immobility. It's a stress response, and they freeze up, and it's very difficult. And as much as people say, well, why didn't you run? Why didn't you scream? You are not able to. Your brain doesn't let you do it. It's like an animal playing dead. It's not a conscious choice. It's a subconscious choice the brain makes for survival. And it's very hard. That's why women don't come forward, because they feel guilty. They feel ashamed. And so this is really difficult thing to do, to talk about. So we'll take questions now.
Did you get the sense when you told Vanessa everything that had happened to you, that she knew, that she was sort of aware of this happening?
I did, and that's why I didn't write the letter, because I felt played. I just felt she was just telling me whatever to just make me feel some type of comfort. But at this point, I just felt stupid.
Yes.
Are there any damages being sought, or is there any criminal charges that were filed, and if so, where?
So first, with regard to damages, yeah, I mean, the damages in this case will be psychological injury, pain, and suffering. I mean, Katie went through a very dark time after this incident, and in 2014 became suicidal, and went through a lot. Has turned the corner and is healing, but there's a lot of destruction that takes place when these things happen. With regard to the criminal, we don't control that. She has reported it to the criminal authorities, and it's for them to decide what they're going to do with it. Well, she actually, she's reached out, has met with the New York criminal authorities.
With federal or?
Right now, NYPD, and she's cooperating with, we expect that there may be something further forward, and she's going to cooperate with the French authorities, going to cooperate with the British authorities, going to cooperate with the federal authorities. And so we'll see, but again, that's not something that she controls or I control. We just report it, and they do what they're going to do.
Is there any New York connection that the NYPD might have jurisdiction over that you know of?
Well, the only thing I'm aware of is that, this federal law that we're proceeding under, it's a criminal statute for which there is a civil remedy. And so, the point of the NYPD is that they'd be working with the federal authorities. I don't think, my understanding is there would not be sort of local jurisdiction.
I think there's a lawsuit also filed in London. Is it also filed by you, or is that a different person?
No.
Unrelated.
Okay, thank you.
Unrelated. You had? Yes.
Can you explain the legal theory one more time? It's that he explicitly traveled to France to find a victim, which seems as compelling as and heartbreaking as the story is. He traveled to France to go to Cannes.
Right. No, that's not the theory. Okay. There is a law a federal law that talks about what you're discussing, which is when a U.S. citizen travels to a foreign country and sexually abuses a minor. Okay. That's not this case. That's not the law we're proceeding under. The federal, so the federal jurisdiction is simply because he is a U.S. citizen. The theory of liability is that Harvey Weinstein enticed and coerced Kadian to come up to his hotel room with the promise of helping her with her career, and that once she was in the hotel room, he used force, he used coercion, he used fraud to get her to engage in a commercial sex act, which is defined as this quid pro quo. That's it. So it doesn't matter that what his intent was in traveling to France. The federal jurisdiction is simply because because Congress has given the U.S. courts federal jurisdiction over a U.S. citizen that engages in this activity in another country. And just to add, this same law could be used for any of these assaults that took place in the United States, provided that there's some, what they call interstate commerce engaged, meaning that there is a crossing of state lines, or there's computers, or there's telephones used. I've seen a case where this law was used, and it was a domestic case in the United States, and they said that this pimp had bought his condoms in China, so therefore there was federal jurisdiction. And so, again, the benefit of this law is that it allows me to bring this case for Caden here in the United States, and there's a 10-year statute of limitations.
What is the statute in France for sexual assault? In other words, why not pursue a criminal case with French authorities?
So we're not pursuing any criminal case at all. I mean, that's up for the authorities, and she'll report it in France as well. She will do that.
Why not pursue a criminal case? It sounds like he forcibly, you know.
Well, I'm a civil lawyer. All she can do is report the crime. She becomes a witness and doesn't have the standing to pursue it. That's for the authorities to decide. She'll report it, and then they'll decide what they're going to do. In terms of filing a civil case in France, I'm not a lawyer there. I couldn't, and there's no need to.
Is that how you see Harvey Weinstein now? As just some cheap sexual predator?
I feel it's very sad because I had that vulnerability in the sense of innocence of the world, and having a dream and believing in something, and seeing him as someone who has been, I saw him as someone who gave something good to society, the movies and everything in which he's been a part of. But now he's conditioned the way I view the industry, and sadly I know everyone is not like that, but it's made me very ignorant towards a lot of people in the industry, feeling that that's all it's about, really. So I feel that's been unfair, definitely.
Katie, a couple questions. How old were you at the time of the sexual assault?
I was 27.
27. And where do you live now, and have you left the industry, or are you still pursuing certain jobs?
I have taken time out because I was on such a high of just really believing that everything I wanted was going to be a reality. I have a 12-year-old daughter, and I was hit by a car when I was 16, and I wasn't able to attend drama school, and I fell pregnant at a later point. And I have my daughter, and after I've tried to enter this world, and meeting Harvey was for me like everything, thinking this is an opportunity. So I everything in which I believed in, and believing that there's a second chance, like for me, he was that man. So yeah, I feel silly to say that I put so much into him, but I really believed in him. And I think that's why it probably hurted so much, because he was like everything.
Yes.
What level of responsibility do you think people like Charlotte and Vanessa hold in this whole bigger picture of Weinstein, all these women that come forward?
I feel that they're not, I don't know if they're consciously going ahead with whatever he's carrying on with, but I think subconsciously it's there somewhere that they know. And and they pick up his pieces.
Mr. Herman, how much, in terms of compensation from the Weinstein Company, what are you looking for? I've seen quotes of in the millions. I just want to get a better idea of all that.
Yeah, I mean, there's no specific number that's asked for in these cases. Eventually, if it goes to trial, the jury will decide. And at that point, I will ask the jury for a number that I consider to be, I mean, obviously we think her damages are significant, and so we will be seeking, anytime someone's assaulted like this, the damages are well into the millions of dollars. There's no magic wand, you know, all we can do in civil cases is sue for money. We can't undo what happened, and the money becomes almost symbolic as a measure of justice. So we'll proceed that way.
Katie, you haven't had an opportunity to say anything to Harvey. What would you say to Harvey today?
I would say to him that he's creating, people believe in you, and it's not been fair that you've used the power, the gift that you have, you've turned it into such a corruption to take advantage of other people and to make promises to bring people's dreams to a reality. It's just not fair because you have no idea the impact you have on people's everyday life. Not only that individual in which you do the damage to, but everyone else who's linked to that person. And it's not okay to do that. You've completely misused the gift that you have to create magic in this world, to absolutely take advantage of people who also want to be able to make their own magic a reality.
Are you from the US? Where are you from?
I am originally from the Caribbean. I was there up until I was 11, and I live in London now.
Okay. Any other questions before we wrap? Yep.
This is specific.
Yeah.
What's Charlotte's last name?
I don't know her last name.
And that phone call with Vanessa, was that the last time you spoke with her, or anyone who went to company?
Yeah, that was the last time I spoke with her, which was late last year or earlier this year, and I changed my mobile number after that because I I thought it was time to just let go because I had no chance. So for me, this year, I could have never imagined myself speaking out like this because I wouldn't want any type of exposure for speaking about something like this, but if I can be of assistance.
I'm curious, you mentioned that it's all these women who have come forward that have kind of given you the
Yes.
to come forward with your story. Is there any turning point in particular that you could recall? Any story in particular, any woman that you said, that's it, I'm ready now? Can you recall?
No, there wasn't any particular, but it was just, for me, it felt like a dream. Like, really, has this man been identified for what he's doing? And after weeks and weeks, a friend of mine found Mr. Herman, and through speaking with him, he gave me a freedom mentally to not feel as ashamed, which I still do. And for that, I'm grateful. I could have never imagined being here speaking of Harvey in this way. And for me, of course, money can be of assistance in my life, but it's not about that. It's more for me just the freedom of expressing and saying to him, like, what he's done. It just ruins people's lives. I do know men will be men, but in the sense of really like getting into someone's head and using your power to change lives, to make someone feel that you're going to make their dreams a reality, and when that person like myself felt that it wasn't right for him to make me feel stupid, that I was overthinking his actions, and for me to live with that secret and feeling ashamed that I would have no chance against someone like him, I just felt it was very unfair. So I never thought this day would ever come, and I feel that if Harvey Weinstein being made an example, if if he gets some type of punishment, then I hope, whether sex trafficking or just men in this industry, if it can just make this behavior less, then I'll be grateful. Because it really, it's mentally destroying.
All right, thank you. Come on.
So another accuser speaks, guys, and like you're mentioning, this is just another horrible situation, and another girl. And I didn't quite actually get her name or what she's from. I know one of you was mentioning what you might have known her from, but yeah, just another horrible thing to see her speak like this, and also in the same effect, a good thing that these women are starting to come out, and it's still going. We wonder when this is actually going to end, but it is a good thing that they're feeling more comfortable to have these experiences, these lawyers to help them out, and I'm going to change that up, and help them speak out about this in full detail, and a really just sort of tragic thing. Some of you were saying it was hard to watch. It was kind of going to make you cry. Definitely a tough one, but good of her to speak up, and we're going to continue to follow more of that, and if more comes from that story, we'll have that live as well, guys. We still have our stakeout on Capitol Hill. We saw President Trump earlier. He popped up and waved to the camera a little bit, and this is still a static camera there. Yeah, it's just hanging out in the hallways on Capitol Hill, and nothing else new switching up on our streams right now. So we're going to go back to that interview with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, guys. Interesting news I just read is that she will be quitting acting. She's going to be leaving her acting career at age 36, and she's going to take this marriage full on and go from there. So I just read that in an article, so maybe that's a little tidbit of breaking news, but we'll finish out that interview, the first interview they had from being engaged, and if I have anything else live, I'll break in with that. But thanks for hanging out on the stream today, guys.
Talk about the transition of this out of my career but into the role is that, as you said, the causes that have been very important to me I can focus even more energy on, because very early out of the gate, I think you realize once you have access or a voice that people are willing to listen to, with that comes a lot of responsibility, which I take seriously. And at the same time, I think in these beginning few months and now being boots on the ground in the UK, I'm excited to just really get to know more about the different communities here, smaller organizations who are working on the same causes that I've always been passionate about under this umbrella. And also being able to go around to the Commonwealth. I think it's just the beginning of a...
There's a lot to do.
Really?
There's a lot to do.
And it's an immense change. You're getting a new country out of it, a husband, obviously, but also giving up your
nice,
career.
Yes, nice. Yes. But I don't see it as giving anything up. I just see it as a change.
It's a new challenge.
It's a new chapter, right? And also keep in mind, I've been working on my show for 7 years. So we are very, very fortunate to be able to have that sort of longevity on a series. And for me, once we hit the 100 episode marker, I thought, you know what, I have ticked this box, and I feel really proud of the work I've done there. And now it's time to, as you said, work as a team with you. Yeah.
But do you have that sense of responsibility, Prince Harry, for what you're asking Meghan to do?
Of course, that sense of responsibility was essentially from day one, or maybe a couple of months in, when I suddenly realised, actually, this is, I know that I'm in love with this girl, and I hope that she's in love with me. But we still had to sit down on the sofa, and I still had to have some pretty, frank conversations with her to say that, what you're letting yourself in for is, it's a big deal, and it's, it's not easy for anybody. But I know that, at the end of the day, she chooses me, and I choose her, and therefore, whatever we have to tackle together or individually will always be us together as a team. So, I think she's capable.
So
of,
nicely said, isn't it?
I don't know. She's capable of anything. And together, as I said, there's a hell of a lot of stuff and work that needs doing. At the moment, for us, it's going to be making sure that our relationship is always put first. But know that both of us have passions for wanting to make change for good, and with lots of young people running around the Commonwealth, that's where we're going to spend most of our time, hopefully.
And it was really one of the first things we connected on. It was one of the first things we started talking about when we met, was just the different things that we wanted to do in the world and how passionate we were about seeing change. I think that was that's what got date 2 in the books, probably.
Plenty to talk about.
Children?
Not currently, no. No, of course, I think one step at a time, and hopefully we'll start a family in the near future.
Have you met each other's families, I imagine?
Yes, his family's been so welcoming, and
You've met quite a few of them, actually.
I have, on both sides of his family, his mom's side as well, which has been really important to me too. But yes, the family has been great, and over the past year and a half, we've just had a really nice time getting to know them and progressively helping me feel a part of not just the institution, but also part of the family, which has been really, really special.
Trying to track them down and make sure that they're around at the same time that she's popping in without telling too many people. And so we've actually done incredibly well to make sure that you've met all the key people.
So does that mean a lot of the time that you've been together in this last year and a half, you've been at home a lot?
Yes. No, we've we had to sort of reverse the whole process, and cozy nights in front of the television, cooking dinner with just the two of us by ourselves in our little cottage, rather than going out for dinner and being seen in public. So we reversed the whole process, which is it's provided different opportunities, and it's made us a hell of a lot closer in a shorter space of time.
That's true.
That's without question. So if anybody else at home is listening, then maybe slow down on the dates and maybe spend more time at home. But no, it's for us. It's an opportunity to really get to know each other without other people, looking or trying to take photos on their phones and all that kind of stuff. With that comes with the job, comes with the role. But where possible,
And we were able to really get to know each other that way. But also then to go and have friends over for dinner, or to go to his family's tea, or any of those sort of things, and even just to take the time to be able to go on long country walks and just talk.
We've been all over the place.
Have you met the Queen?
I have, yes.
A couple of times.
What was
Yes,
that
sure, a
like?
couple of times. It's incredible. I think, to be able to meet her through his lens, not just with his honor and respect for her as the monarch, but the love that he has for her as his grandmother. All of those layers have been so important for me, so that when I met her, I had such a deep understanding and, of course, incredible respect for being able to have that time with her. And we've had she's an incredible woman.
And the corgis took to you straight away.
That's true.
For the last 33 years being barked at. This one walks in, absolutely
Just
nothing,
laying on
just
my feet during tea.
wagging
It was very
tails,
sweet.
and it's just like, oh.
That has to be a good sign. Speaking of dogs, have you brought yours to the UK?
Well, I have 2 dogs that I've had for quite a long time, both my rescue pups, and one is now staying with very close friends, and my other little guy he's in the UK. He's been here for a while.
Okay. Let's hope he adjusts well.
I think he's doing just fine.
What was it like introducing Meghan to your father and your brother?
What was it like? It was exciting. I mean, I've been seeing her for a period of time when I literally didn't tell anybody at all. And then William was longing to meet her, and so was Catherine. So, they're being our neighbours. We managed to get that in quite a few times now. And Catherine's been absolutely
wonderful,
amazing, as is William as well. Fantastic support. And then my father as well. We had a couple of more than that.
We've had
a handful of teas and meetings and all sorts of gatherings over at his place as well. So no, the family together have been absolutely solid support, and my grandparents as well have been wonderful throughout this whole process, and they've known for quite some time. So how they haven't told anybody is again a miracle in itself. But no, the whole family have come together and have been a huge amount of support.
They've been amazing.
And Meghan, your parents, do you think, very happy for you, obviously. Do you think they have worried at all about the scale of what you're getting into?
Well, I'm sure at the onset, both my parents and my close friends were concerned, because we got very quickly swept up in a media storm that, as I shared, was not part of my life before that. But they also had never seen me so happy. And I think also once my friends, were able to really meet Harry and my mom, who we've spent a lot of time with, who's so much fun.
Mom's amazing.
It was just, obvious that no matter what we were being put through, that it was just temporary and that we were going to be able to get through that. So everyone was really happy to meet. He's talked to my dad a few times, hasn't been able to meet him just yet. But it's all been worth every effort.
Yeah, it's been great.
Your ring.
Oh, yes.
Tell us about your ring.
The ring is obviously yellow gold because that's her favourite, and the main stone itself is sourced from Botswana, and the little diamonds either side are from my mother's jewellery collection to make sure that she's with us on this crazy journey together. And
it's beautiful, and he designed it. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make sure it stays on that finger.
Of course.
What does it mean to you, Meghan, to have those stones on your finger that once belonged to Princess Diana?
I think everything about Harry's thoughtfulness and the inclusion of that, and obviously not being able to meet his mom, it's so important to me to know that she's a part of this with us, and I think in being able to meet his aunts and also to be like Julia and just different people who are so important to his mom, I'm able to in some way know a part of her through them and of course through him, and it's incredibly special. And to be able to have this, which sort of links where you come from, and Botswana, which is important to us, and it's perfect.
What do you think your mother would have thought of Meghan or said about Meghan?
Oh, they'd be thick as thieves, without question. I think she would be over the moon, jumping up and down, so excited for me. But then, as I said, would have probably been best friends with Meghan. So no, it is days like today when I really miss having her around and miss being able to share the happy news. But with the ring and with everything else that's going on, I'm sure she's with us. I'm sure she's with us. Jumping up and down somewhere else.
So I admit, guys, that interview was yesterday. I think that was posted about 23 hours ago. So some of you were saying what Harry looks like today. But that was the first interview, and it was posted yesterday. And because we didn't have a stream yesterday, I wanted to make sure we threw that on there today because it is the top of every show that we did this morning, and a ton of the social media world and the news world is going to have that interview or clips from that interview throughout the day. Lots of people saying Princess Diana, Lady Di would have approved of them as a couple, and it'll be interesting to see how this rolls out. Like we said, the wedding is set for next May at Kensington Palace, and she mentioned it right there in the interview. She's giving up sort of her world, but starting this new chapter as a royal, and she will be the Duchess of Sussex, actually, because she is not born royal, so she's marrying in, so she'll be a Duchess just like Kate of Cambridge. So for some interesting facts there. Let me know what you think about that, guys, what you thought of that interview. We kind of did it in pieces. Switching gears a little bit, also, this is a pretty interesting story, actually. Talking about the topic of marijuana, always a hot topic, the legalization of marijuana everywhere, wherever. In Illinois today, this morning, just a few moments ago, you guys know the travel host Rick Steves? He actually joined a state senator and a state rep, 2 women in Chicago, in Illinois, at a news conference to talk about why it makes sense for Illinois to end its prohibition on marijuana. And he was actually going to be testifying at a state Senate hearing on that same topic later. So this was kind of a cool little conference, and I saw it sort of right earlier before I started the stream, and I was like, let me grab it so I can show you guys kind of a neat, relevant topic and topical to people sort of our world and generation and the digital world. It's of interest. It's a talker. So let me know what you think about this. It's kind of cool. If you ever read any of his books or his travel stuff, you'll recognize. But again, this is the travel host in Chicago just a little bit ago from today. Kind of a cool talker, cool topic. And then we'll come back in and see what you guys are up to. Yeah. Oh, Iran, you're saying that Rick Steves has always been an advocate. Cool. You know a little bit more about him than I do. I am familiar with the travel stuff and like the books. And some of I know he became a personality and he did a lot of television stuff. But this was a neat one. Let's play this out. It's kind of cool.
And so this is just the next step. We'll be looking at public health, we'll be looking at youth access, and we'll be looking at the social justice components as well as we move forward into the next session. So we look forward to your questions and your participation. And without further ado, I'd like to bring up Mr. Rick Steves.
Thank you very much. Well, it's so nice to travel from Washington State, where we've legalized marijuana and now have a pretty effective taxed and regulated market, to Illinois, which is dealing with the same questions we dealt with a few years ago. You know, I've spent a third of my adult life living out of a 9 by 22 by 14-inch carry-on the airplane-sized suitcase in Europe, hanging out with people who find a joint about as exciting as a can of beer. And my friends in Europe look at the United States, where we're so quick to legislate morality, and they tell me a society has to make a choice: tolerate alternative lifestyles or build more prisons. And then they always remind me that here in America we lock up 10 times as many people per capita as they do in Europe. Either we are an inherently more criminal people, or there's something screwy about our laws. We're learning right now that by locking up so many people because of marijuana, that needs to be looked at in a critical way. I want to stress, this is not a pro-pot movement. This is an anti-prohibition movement. And in my state, we've learned that a prohibition is just a costly mistake. It's nothing new. Back in the 30s, when Mayor LaGuardia was helping New York get out of the prohibition against alcohol, LaGuardia said, if a society has a law on the books that it does not intend to enforce consistently across the board, the very existence of that law erodes respect for law enforcement in general. That's what we have here in the United States. There's so many reasons that we can frame this that it's just smart to get to dismantle the United States law war on marijuana. I think one of the ugliest parts of it is just the flat-out racism about our laws about marijuana. I was trailed by law enforcement people in my state for a couple of years as I was giving talks about legalizing marijuana. I actually became friends with Sergeant Meehan, who is Gil Kierlikowski's right-hand man for this in Washington State. He wanted to know what the drug policy reform people were all up to, and we got to know each other, and he knew all my lines. And one day we had dinner, and then we were walking out of the restaurant, and he said, "Rick, it's just amazing to me how you're so passionate about this issue. You're a well-set-up white guy here in the suburbs. You could smoke pot with impunity, with a little discretion all your life, and never bite you. Why do you care about this?" And I said, that's exactly why I care about it. 70,000 people are locked up in our country every year. 700,000 people are arrested for possession of marijuana, nonviolent crimes. They're not rich white guys. They're poor people and they're black people. It's amazing that this is going on in our country right now, and there's just a way out of this. Washington State passed I-502 in 2012, and it was not a pro-pot law. It was a pro-public safety law, and it was put together not by a bunch of pot smokers, but what we considered the dream team for a state that wants to step away from this failed prohibition. In Washington State, I was one of the co-sponsors and the funders of the law. Standing by me was the Republican-appointed federal prosecuting attorney, John McKay, the elected city attorney, Pete Holmes, the president of the Bar Association, legislators like Representative Cassidy and Senator Staines that had built their careers in Olympia on children's safety issues and family and health issues. And they were recognizing that the worst thing about marijuana from a kid's point of view is the fact that it is a crime to use it. We had the endorsement of the NAACP, we had the endorsement of the Children's Alliance in our state, and we had people realizing that we've got to take the crime out of the equation and treat marijuana as a health challenge and an education challenge. Marijuana is a drug. It's not good for you. It can be abused. And it's here today, and it's going to be here tomorrow. What we need to do is take that black market down and turn it into a highly regulated and highly taxed legal market so that we can gain credibility and focus on the real risk to young people in our society, which is hard drug abuse. So that's been my message. Every 2 years I spend a couple $100,000 in 8 or 10 days of my time going on the road to help states legalize. 2012, Washington State, 2014, Oregon, last year, Massachusetts and Maine, and this year I'm really excited to be breaking out of the initiative world and into the legislative world and encouraging states like Illinois to learn from our track record. In 2012, when we legalized marijuana, it was going on hunches, and I had a lot of good hunches, but people, the opposition said, no, the sky's going to fall when we legalize. We have a track record now. The political establishment is still talking like it's 2010. No, it's 2017. We know what happens when we legalize marijuana for adult recreational use. Use does not go up. Teen use does not go up. DUIs don't go up. Crime doesn't go up. The only thing that goes up is tax revenue. In my state, we have $300 million this year in tax revenue, over $1.4 billion in sale. That's little Washington State. Illinois is much bigger than that. You might think, what? $300 million in tax revenue for selling marijuana? Hasn't use gone up? No, that was a thriving black market industry before that rivaled apples in my state. And if you know how big apples are in Washington, that's a big industry. We've taken a black market, which was empowering and enriching organized crime and gangs, and we've dismantled it. We've turned it into a highly regulated, highly taxed legal market, employing 26,000 people, especially in rural areas where we can use the employment. We've been able to redirect precious law enforcement resources away from petty pot issues and onto serious crime. And our governor now has $300 million of tax revenue he wouldn't have otherwise to put to very good use, earmarked for health issues, drug prevention issues, and our general fund. So I could talk all day long about the importance of legalizing marijuana and taxing it smartly, but I'd like to just stand here and celebrate your leadership here for bringing this issue to bear in your state, and I'd be happy to answer questions about my experience if you'd like. Thank you.
You alluded to your coming to this position because of your experience. What was it in your experience, whether it's in Europe or here, that made you see it this way?
I've spent a lot of time in Europe talking with people who have been struggling with the same problems we're struggling with on this side of the Atlantic. And European states deal with the marijuana issue differently in different states, but they've all found that there is no correlation between use and how strict the laws are. A lot of people in our society think that there's a big reservoir of good people that would just love to ruin their lives smoking pot if only it was legal. The fact is, Europe has found out this, and we're finding out now, if you want to smoke pot, you do. When it becomes legal, you do it as a law-abiding citizen rather than a criminal activity. There's no correlation between consumption and how strict the laws are. Europeans have found that. And there's no doubt about it. The Dutch have the most lenient laws on marijuana in all of Europe, and they smoke half the European average. And the European per capita consumption is less than the American per capita consumption, and you can do hard time for smoking pot here. So these are some issues that I've learned in my travels. I was leaving Christiania, the hippie commune city up in Copenhagen, and one day, and they smoke a lot of pot there. And as I was leaving, they told me, be careful with your marijuana when you leave Christiania in Copenhagen, because every year we have to arrest a couple of pot smokers in order to maintain favored trade status with the United States of America. And that got me thinking about, what is it about America that insists on keeping marijuana illegal? Our country has actually extorted other countries to sign a treaty in the United Nations that requires all signatories to wage trade sanctions against any country that dare take the crime out of the equation and deal with marijuana as a health issue and an education challenge. I just thought, I can talk about this. I had so many friends that cared about this, but they couldn't talk about it in media, in politics, because they were worried about getting elected or they're worried about getting fired. I don't need to be elected. I can't be fired. Every once in a while, somebody asks me, what has that done to your business, speaking out about marijuana? And I said, well, actually, I've looked back on that, and over once in a great while, somebody will say, oh, Rick Steves, I know what you think about marijuana. We're not going to use your guidebooks, and we're not going to take your tours anymore. And all I can think is Europe's going to be more fun without you. So this is it's a very interesting issue to get up to speed on. I think I love to deal with things where people are steep on the learning curve and the consequences are huge. And it's just very exciting to be taking down a federal prohibition one state at a time. And that's what you do. The federal government doesn't just say, oh, we were wrong, I'm sorry. States are incubators for change. That's how it's designed. First you do initiatives because politicians are nervous about it. So it has to be grassroots. I'll tell you, the people are ahead of the politicians in this issue, far ahead of it. And the politicians are learning now that, as we have learned right here, nobody's going to assassinate your character and call you soft on drugs when you want to be smart on drugs. This isn't an issue of soft or hard on drugs. This is an issue of how can we be pragmatic? How can we be smart about a problem that we can't just wish away? Marijuana's here. People who are opponents talk like, oh, if you legalize marijuana, it's going to mess up kids' brains. Well, the kids are smoking marijuana. If it's going to mess up their brains, that's a bad issue. But they're smoking now, and they're going to smoke after. How can we gain credibility? And we can't gain credibility with more reefer madness kind of stuff. We can gain credibility by talking the truth to our young people. And to me, it's a huge issue. I was a parent with 2 kids, and we had to navigate all those challenges. I want teachers and parents and cops to have credibility with kids. And they can have credibility with kids when they speak the truth rather than mouthing government reefer madness talking points. Yeah.
Here's one about DUI. I know you call for strict enforcement of DUI. I mean, I'm aware of people who are smoking now since they have relaxed law in California that weren't smoking before. Don't you think there's going to be an inevitable increase in people driving while high? How do you, when there's question about how you measure that,
Yeah.
how do you enforce it?
Actually, I can speak to the Illinois law when you
Sure.
what happened in
Yeah, the DUI thing is a very important concern. As I said, in Washington State, we were not a pro-pot law, we were a public safety law. That's why we got the endorsement of law enforcement. And we had very, very strict DUI considerations in our law. It was so strict that our main opposition was from the left, not from the right on this. And I would recommend in Illinois to have a very strict law respecting the concerns of people who are nervous about this. I would say there are anecdotes where you've got a friend that smokes now and he didn't smoke before and he's out in there driving dangerously. I don't know anybody on my team when it comes to drug policy reform that wouldn't agree with me that if somebody is driving intoxicated by anything, pills, pot, booze, they should throw the book at them. But I don't think there's any real evidence that shows in any state, medical, legal, or completely no marijuana, there's no correlation between those states of safety on the roads. And they've studied this because there's all sorts of people looking for an excuse to discredit this legalization movement. And I know in my state and in Colorado, you can take little isolated cases and people whose job is to be in the opposition can spin examples and say statistically, look, there were 2 more accidents in this county than before. Fatalities have doubled. But if you look at the broad picture, there's no indication that marijuana states, whether it's medical marijuana or legal marijuana, have any difference on the road. But when we legalize, we can now invest issues and how can we better make sure our roads are safe.
Right. So Illinois DUI law, we actually addressed that in the bill that Senator Staines and I worked on for uniform civil enforcement for the ticket bill for low-level possession. And we worked with law enforcement and prosecutors, and we actually mirror Washington State's DUI standard. And what we have now in Illinois for the first time is the opportunity to actually see whether or not we are citing people for cannabis-specific or THC-specific DUI. And when you hear some of the studies about those increases, that's because states did it for the first time when they brought their laws on board. There were never THC-specific DUI laws, and so when you pass those, of course, there's going to be more DUI with THC as a component when you have a new law about it. And so that's some of the things you talked about a county that had 2 accidents and therefore it doubled. You also see people who say, they increased 500%. Well, from 0 to 5 is 500%. So it's important to look at the real numbers. And we have already addressed the question of DUI here in Illinois with one of the strictest laws in the country, singling out cannabis involved DUI. Yeah, yeah, and that mirrors Washington State.
If I can ask a technical follow-up about the question. There are established tests for alcohol, but unless the test here in Illinois for whether you're smoking pot is just an officer roll down your window.
Actually, no, that's not true. So we do within our law, we do have the new standard that is also again based on Colorado and Washington, and this was at the request of the State's Attorneys Association, the Illinois State's Attorneys Association, using a saliva or blood-based test to measure the presence of THC in your saliva or blood. So we do have that.
And how do you take that sample?
So there are roadside saliva tests available. Some counties are using them, some aren't. And then there's also the blood test that we use. I mean, if you're in a traffic accident and end up in the hospital, your blood gets tested. So they're just now testing for THC as well as alcohol. But we don't test for any of the other things. Like we don't talk about how many people have opioid prescriptions and are driving every day on those. And we don't specifically test for that. And I think that's a much greater risk because we do have people who think, well, my doctor gave me this, so that I could function. They think they're functioning, but they're impaired. And they're impaired on a substance that is incredibly dangerous. And so I think that, you know, when we narrowly focus like this on cannabis and don't think about all of the other substances that people could be driving impaired on, we lose the bigger picture. Yes? Well, this is all of the above. So this creates a tax and regulate structure. It creates a sort of a parallel regulation to the way we deal with alcohol and juvenile access. You know, we talk about youth access. You know, our kids are high school age, and they all say that they can get pot much more easily than alcohol. Drug dealers don't card. You know, the drug dealer's job is to get you in and upsell you. Absolutely.
I want to add one point to that very question because Mr. Steves alluded to the fact that they did a public safety law in Washington. Well, every state that's passed legal adult use of cannabis has done it through ballot initiative to date. And when you do it by ballot initiative, they actually had some of the public safety folks, but a lot of times you're talking about the pro-marijuana advocates really crafting those ballot initiatives. We have the real luxury, and I think a much better way of being able to do it now by going out as we have been and meeting with every single interest group on this topic that we can, and we've been doing that. We've been meeting with the state's attorneys, we've been meeting with law enforcement, we've been meeting with public health officials. We have the chance of, I think, crafting legislatively a bill that does look towards public safety and having that first and foremost in mind. As I think we've all alluded to, prohibition doesn't work, and that's the primary goal here, is really keeping it out of the reach of kids, and you can do that a lot better in a regulated environment than you can in the black market. It's plain and simple. So making sure we actually get all that input is what we're doing right now. And that's why we're taking a very deliberative approach and long-term approach to getting this bill in Illinois.
And if I could add to Senator Steen's idea, it is exciting to think that this is a legislative process instead of the initiative process. And I know every initiative process has learned from the last. And now you guys have all of us guinea pigs that fell on the barbed wire and learned the hard way. And you're walking over now that with those lessons. And a good example is packaging for kids. You know, our initial laws didn't realize what a important thing it is to limit packaging, so it can't be construed as marketing to adolescents or children. Another thing would be ideas about how do you fine-tune the DUI provisions and so on. How do you make sure that places that sell marijuana are away from schools? There's a lot of things that we have learned in our experience. In Washington State, we were just far from perfect, but we needed to pass something so that we could then build on that. And it's been interesting for me to watch how that's happened. Also, in regards to your question about DUIs and so on, I want to stress, it is so clear, use does not go up when you legalize. So, you know, DUIs is a real concern. It's a concern now, and it will be a concern after marijuana is legalized and taxed and regulated. What we need to do is to be able to talk about it in a credible, honest way, instead of having this murky, illegal activity. When we go to Washington State now, there's no discussion in my state that I've ever heard of about it's dangerous on the roads now because more people are smoking pot. More people are not smoking pot. It is dangerous when people are drinking or smoking or medicated on the road, but it's not changed when you decide to legalize it. Now, instead of criminals on the street selling you stuff you don't really know what you're buying, instead of criminals who have no interest in keeping this away from minors, you've got, or criminals that want to sell you something more addictive and more profitable, you've got marijuana stores that, and if you ever get a chance to step into one, it's like walking into an Apple store or something like that. It's sterile, it's clean, it's smart people, it's highly regulated. We've got banks now in Washington State that have complete access to all the books for these companies in order to responsibly do banking with them, even at the risk of federal officials coming in and getting involved in that. But we're following the Cole memo very, very strictly. And the point is we're just learning a lot. And I think from an Illinois point of view, it's kind of a blessing to be coming into this 4 or 5 years later because we have this hard experience now. Before it was hunches, now there are hard statistical experiences, And my governor, Jay Inslee, wanted nothing to do with marijuana, and he was elected the day we legalized marijuana. And he's had to deal with this. And I just talked to him a couple months ago. He's so thankful we're not diverting law enforcement to this silly issue. He's so thankful he doesn't have to arrest 8,000 people a year, which we would be had we not passed I-502. And he's really getting used to $300 million of tax revenue every year to fund all sorts of things, including a good part of that just into our general fund. I think we're suffering from decades and billions of dollars of misinformation from the federal government with this insistence on making marijuana criminal. Nobody in the responsible drug policy reform team is saying marijuana is good. It's just like alcohol. When they finally legalized alcohol, it wasn't a celebration booze is good. It was a recognition that the laws against the booze were causing more harm to society than the booze itself. Let's regulate it instead of criminalize it. And we're learning that right now. This is not a celebration of marijuana. Marijuana use is going down among adolescents because now we have credibility, just like we've had success with tobacco in kids. You can advertise, you can educate, and you can make progress. So we are dealing with decades of reefer madness kind of misinformation. There are forces. You know what
All right, guys, we're going to cut back into the newsroom because that's all we had of that news conference with Rick Caesar. Pretty cool, right? I'd never, like I said, seen him in that capacity. And it's really cool. I know I have some of the viewers from the Pacific Northwest. You guys have seen this legalization really in droves for a long time. So you've already kind of seen this process. Now we see him speaking out with state senator, state representative in Chicago, and it's sort of moving amongst the different cities. You know, it's a matter of time before we see where it takes off to, and if it really does take over, and how things change, obviously state by state, and then federally if that changes in our near lifetime. We'll see. But interesting topic, right? A talker and pretty topical to our generation and our viewers. So been watching your comments, guys. Good to hear from you guys, chatting it up. One of you mentioned, I'm trying to think, Amsterdam, and just because in relation to marijuana and pot, I have actually been there. Really interesting. I was in college, so I have some cool stories from there, probably for another time. But I got to go to the Van Gogh Museum that you mentioned and some of the other awesome art stuff there. So it came back to my mind when you were mentioning that, because it all has to do with that. But obviously, marijuana, long time been the thing, and legal, of course, in European cities. And now this is definitely an event of today and a news conference that was worthy, I think, of playing back to see him speak about that. But I'm glad some of you guys like his show and kind of are a fan. I'm like sort of semi-familiar. I know all of his travel stuff in the books, but like I said, hadn't seen him speak. So kind of interesting to see the host chat it up with that. But yeah, guys, I think with that, I'm gonna take a little recovery time and be back in full force for tomorrow. I appreciate you guys hanging out on the stream. Of course, it's nearing 2 o'clock Eastern here in DC, and you see the newsroom behind me. We're rolling into our afternoon, and nothing too much coming down our sources right now. We still have this live look inside the hallways here, the stakeout camera on Capitol Hill, and then just a live shot of the Capitol Dome. Outside, you can still see some pretty fall leaves going on. That's what we're looking at here in DC. So with that, guys, thank you so much for joining, for asking about the holiday, and just sticking on through this long weekend, and for keeping the conversation going. We love having you on, and you never know what you're going to get, right? Every day is kind of different, and we're going to have varied material and varied people on, and just see what's going to go on in news. So that's what's fun about it. All right, guys, we will see you tomorrow. Mike Thomas will be back, I believe, Thursday to do some weather before I do some of the news. He's away for a little bit, but I'll be back tomorrow as normal. So check us out, guys. Don't forget to flag us as your stream of live news here in DC. And Pete, have a good night. I know some of you guys are across wherever, the world or nation, and different time zones. So thanks for hanging out. All right, guys, see you later.